Welcome to the Serving Second podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Toussaint Williams, and this is where second chair leaders can create first place outcomes. Today is special because I have a good friend of mine, my brother, my friend, Dr. Myron P. Edmonds. He is a blessing to the body of Christ. He is a blessing to anybody he connects with. This can go a number of different ways, but I just want to say, Myron, thank you for joining the Serving Second podcast.
Listen, man, I'm just glad to be here, and I love what you're doing. I actually am really, really, really excited about where this is going. There's so many of us and so many people that have been serving second, and they have not been recognized. Their voices have not been heard. Their perspective has not been considered as it should be. And the fact that you have elevated and made a platform for that, is to be applauded. So thank you, brother.
No, man, listen, this is a journey. One thing, you actually inspired this process. I've seen and watched with thousands of others. I've seen just how God has kind of placed you in a number of different places. In fact, we both all started out in ministry, and we've just seen how God has called you to, well, tell your journey. I know you started in ministry. We're going to jump right in. For some folks that have not connected with you, this is for the first time they're meeting Dr. Myron Edmonds. They see the Myron winning circle, Dr. Myron Edmonds. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you started, how you got to be at Winning Circle.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just getting back from Riverside. I caught a red eye from Riverside. I was there this weekend with, our good friend Alfonso Green and there at Mount Rubidoux. And myself, Seth, we were just talking about, man, the good old days, man, when all of us kind of, came out of undergrad and finished seminary and together. It really wasn't it, man? It was just like a group.
Yeah, I'm going to put up the picture so everybody can see.
Oh, yeah. We kind of came out, we pastored together. And honestly, at that time, I think none of us really had any idea what God had in mind of how he was going to use pastoral ministry. And I think it's important to say because pastoral ministry just requires so many gifts, talents, skills, interests, that it becomes difficult until you actually go through the journey to realize that there are other interests, there are other passions, and that there's not sort of a one size fits all. And sometimes you can feel that way. And so, I pastored just like you and just like a lot of our friends, and we enjoyed ministry. Honestly, I didn't see anything else in sight for me. And I need to say that correctly. I enjoyed pastoral ministry because we're still in ministry, serving people and serving for the kingdom. So, yeah, I thought I was going to be a pastor literally until I died. Seriously, I had no exit strategy, no transition strategy, nothing, because that's all I wanted to do. And I think that's okay for anybody that's listening. You don't have to know everything. Purpose to me is not really even knowing the destination. It's just, and you know this very well, you inspired me a lot. That faith journey is obeying the voice of God of what he tells you to do right in front of you. I'm going to be obedient today. I don't know what tomorrow holds. And so, yeah, that journey of pastoring then led me around the pandemic, like a lot of people, to kind of, you're sitting at home, you're in quarantine, you got a lot of time on your hands, you're thinking. And I said, I think I'm really passionate about this men's thing. And so we took the leap of faith after we did it for 4 years. And then I said, you know what, I can't do both. And my heart is really drawn now to the pastoring men, coaching men, serving men. And so in 2024, we left Ohio after being there for 15 years and moved here to Atlanta so that I could exclusively devote my attention and my energy to the Men's Winning Circle, which is a men's personal development and discipleship organization.
So walk me through this because I don't want to miss. We know. I've been intimately involved in the journey of making that transition, but you're making a transition from one organization, one sphere of ministry, one lane of ministry for the past 15, 20 years, and then you're saying, I'm going to jump out here and start. I realize I have a gift. I can speak to men. Men is kind of what God is leading me to. Walk us through the emotions of that, because it wasn't just you. You got a family, those know Myron has a wife, beautiful wife, 2 wonderful kids. And how did that, because that decision had to impact all of them.
Yeah. It's funny if I'm going to be real, to keep it real, right? I can be real on the service.
That's all we
podcast,
do.
Right? Yeah. So, if you think about it, Toussaint, man, we have been pastoring for, and working in denominational ministry or 20 something years. These are
Mm.
decades are starting to pile up. So I think at this stage, I think my wife was open. My kids were very open to just like, yeah, we don't mind a change. We don't mind a change of location. And because they were grown, my kids are a little more grown now, like yours, about the same age. My career being a pastor wasn't really impacting them as much. Now, where it did impact them was that subsidy that we were getting. And so that was a faith journey. But just so far as I don't think they wasn't paying their bills no way. So it didn't hit
The
them at all.
kids didn't care. They don't care.
Right, right. Well, I think my wife was, as I was, a bit burnt out with pastoral ministry, not from a negative perspective, but we were just, it's a lot of demand on you. It's a lot of demand on your family. And just like anybody who's like, I think I want to still do ministry, but I want to do ministry in a different sphere. And I think the only hard part for me, because I think I just had gotten to a point over the pandemic where I was just ready, right? I was just
Mhm.
ready to do something different. I think the hard part was sometimes you wonder, am I going to go into obscurity now? Because
Mm.
let's be honest, and this is just being real, when you are pastoring, there is a level of status, there's a level of being in the spotlight, there's a level of importance, there's a level of being needed that you get from being a pastor. And I think we take it for granted when we do it. But and you know this, when you stop doing it, that's a change. And I guess there's this fear that I have, and I'm not saying it's spiritual. There's this
Mhm.
fear I have of, not feeling like I'm making a difference and maybe being forgotten. And I think that's important for your podcast because I know a lot of people who are in that space, maybe in career, in ministry, and they feel obscure. They feel forgotten. I read this book, Toussaint. It was called Anonymous.
Mm.
Powerful. And it was talking about Jesus, and we're just analyzing the first 30 years of his ministry. I mean, of his
Yes.
life, right? And so
Nothing.
for the first 30 years of his ministry, right? His ministry didn't start, if we believe that ministry is life, but the first 30 years, it's completely anonymous and obscure, but it was preparation for the next season. Well, I had a season of sort of being in the spotlight and leading the congregation and being the man that got up and talked to hundreds of people every week. Now to going somewhat into a realm of obscurity from my previous life. And so creating a different rhythm of life and ministering to a different group. I'm mostly working from home now. I'm mostly dealing with people virtually. So honestly, man, if I'm just being real, that was something I was just like, I don't know if people feel this way, but I just never wanted to feel like I was becoming irrelevant,
Man,
to be real.
that's real because there are people who serve in the shadows or serve in the background who have felt that, man, there is a if I'm not in front of the spotlight, particularly for when we started ministry, that is, one of the blessings and curses of ministry being in the spotlight.
Mhm,
But what
mhm, mhm.
had to happen for you or what do you think has happened in that obscurity and that kind of I guess I'm trying to say this. I feel like personally, when you're not in the spotlight, it's like, man, something is wrong, something is off. But I also saw, and I'm sure others who know you can see a growth. Like something
Mhm,
happened in that
mm.
season of being in the background that changed. I don't know if you noticed it, but I really was like, dang, this dude came out and just is completely has a singular focus, a singular mission, and it's just been amazing to
That's
see.
exactly what it was. No, you hit the nail on the head. I think for the first time in my life, outside of pastoring, and what I'm saying is if you could just take the chunk of pastoring, which was like 25 years, I knew that God called me to pastor. So I felt like I was where I was supposed to be. But I can't always tell you that I had that level of clarity prior to pastoring as a young person or whatever. So pastoring just dominated so much of my life. But coming out of that and having this laser focus, like God literally saying, this is what I want you to do, man, that does create a level of freedom. It does create a level of courage, confidence. And the way that and you know this because you when you take these faith journeys and God
Mm.
literally is answering prayers and he's opening up doors and miracles are happening, real talk, like, and he's providing when you don't have resources. We're talking about two people who both quit their jobs, relocating to a completely different state, a state, Georgia,
Hold on, hold on,
in
hold
the
on.
Atlanta area.
Don't go past that. Wait a second. God called you.
Yeah.
You quit your job, and you saying your wife quit her job too.
Yeah, we both quit. And honestly, when I look back on it, we always say this now. We're like, yo, we didn't really think a lot of things through. We were just in that obedience rhythm.
Hmm.
Like God said, do this, do this, do this, and we did that, and that. So, when it's time to buy a house, they're like, so what's your income? And we're like, oh yeah, but well,
About that.
about that income. So even the fact that we're in a house right now and how we got the house with not having any income and just, again, but all of those things help to confirm, right, and
Got it.
affirm what you're doing. And so what does that do? It just builds your confidence even more. I'm right where I need to be. I'm doing what God told me to do. God is going to bless. And honestly, when I was pastoring, the thing that gave me fuel for this was we were leading by faith when we were pastoring. We just came out of a multi-million dollar building project that
Hmm.
was just one miracle after the other.
Yeah.
And this time, when the Lord told me to leave, the question I had was like, Lord, I mean, are you going to provide for us? Not to mention, you're asking me to do something not a lot of people are doing. And, working with men is a hard population. Where's that money coming from? Like, how are you going to provide? And the Lord was literally like, bro, didn't I show you? And honestly, my fear was, I was like, yeah, I know you want that for the church, but I'm not sure you want that for me. Now, I mean, I've been working for the church, and so, we believe that, we have that safety net, the institution, the church. We know that that's God, the apple of God's eye. But now that I'm on my own, I'm kind of like, I don't know if God really wants the same miracles that he
Mm.
performed. And I was pastoring that church, man. We had people writing $100,000 checks at the last minute when we needed it to get a check. Just crazy
Now,
stuff happening.
now, just for clarity, because there may be some people that aren't in our faith group. Those $100,000 checks weren't going to you; they were
No,
going
no,
to
yeah,
the
thank you.
church. Yeah,
Yes, we were
is
raising
that?
money for a building project, and we were coming up
Hmm.
against deadlines. And it wasn't just we weren't just trying to build another church. We bought a Kmart building, wanted to turn that thing into a community center. It was this massive project with a small group of people. And if you looked at the size of our group and the amount of money that we had collectively and the vision that God gave us, it just didn't add up. But God literally showed me that vision comes before provision, and the Lord just kept supplying. So the point is like I had that experience in my toolbox. And now the Lord was saying, okay, you're ready now. I've
Mm.
shown this was practice. Now it's time for me to do this in your life. And
So,
so,
man, this
yeah, it gives you some confidence.
I'm listening for my listeners who are saying, "Man, I feel like
Mhm.
I have this thing. I'm working in obscurity." And what I'm hearing you say is, man, in that obscurity, I gained clarity, but I also gained practice. Some of the reps of the faith reps that were needed for this next phase of service was perfected in your current role, and I think that's really powerful. And one of the things that's really kind of for as an individual who serves second, you're transitioning now and you're in this role. And one of the things I had a conversation with Kimon, and I wanted to affirm you for this, but I also want to kind of get this. He said you do a really good job of affirming the work he's done to help you get where you are. And for those who don't know, Kimon is a business strategist. If you are trying to get anything off the ground, ideas to life, Kimon Hines, find him on any if YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, wherever it is, TikTok,
Yeah,
he's there. But Myron,
monetizeyourministry.com.
yeah,
Go there. Yeah.
but Myron, talk to us that because some people look at you and be like, man, he did this all by himself, or he's kind of really. Who was the team that was with you that kind of helped you get to where you are?
Yeah, honestly, it was me and Kimon. That was the team.
Yeah.
There are obviously a lot of my sister-in-law works for
Hmm.
me. You have family that help you. But I'm glad you asked that because you triggered a thought in my mind, especially about serving second. And I don't know your thoughts about it. I'm really curious to know your thoughts, but this is a thought that I wanted to throw out here. Yes, there are always people that nothing is ever alone. Like there are always people that have sowed, that prayed, that have supported, that give advice, that give encouragement, that help push you off the ledge. Kimon's the guy really was like, bro, I think you can do this. He had to remind me, you have a doctorate in discipleship of men. Seriously. But when you're pastoring, you just there's so many things you're doing that you kind of almost put on the shelf the things that you have an interest in. And a lot of times we don't we spiritualize away the passions that God gave us. God gave you that passion for a reason. You're interested in that for a reason, and it's okay. But this is the thing that you said, Toussaint, that made me. I said, man, serving second is not just about position. Like in terms of hierarchy and where you're working
Mhm.
in a company. The serving second can also be about the obscure seasons. So honestly, people may not feel this about me, and I would understand that. But I felt like being in Cleveland for 15 years was an obscure season. And I'll tell you why.
Mm.
Even though speaking but there were times I felt like, and this is my flesh, and I loved being in Cleveland. I embraced that city. I love those people to this day. I embraced their sports teams. Like I got there, we set up roots. We raised our children there. But if I would be lying to you if I didn't feel like sometimes I'm watching other guys, and gals that I pastored with, and they're in major cities, pastoring major congregations, and the Lord was like, "Nope, you can't leave."
Mm.
And I'm just like, "Yo, I can't lie to you, tell you, like, sometimes I felt like, because Cleveland's not DC, it's not Atlanta. It was back in the day, but it was a hard city, and it's got some real challenges, and everybody's not trying to come to Cleveland." You know what I'm saying? And so it felt like an obscure place. And I felt like, again, while I was there, that, God, I had some opportunities and I didn't get them. And then there were some opportunities that I could have had, and the Lord told me I couldn't take them. So I
Mm.
was like, 15 years sometimes felt like I was 15 years in the wilderness. Just to be honest, I'm watching everybody else, go here, go there, get this opportunity, be in this city, watching their spouses flourish because they're in the right place and there's opportunity there, and their kids are at certain schools and get an opportunity. And when the Lord had us stuck in Cleveland, what the
In your
flesh would
mind,
tell
yeah.
you,
Mhm.
but not knowing that all of that was preparation. So serving second is not always permanent. Being in obscurity is not always permanent. Everything to me is preparation for whatever it is that God wants to do next. And sometimes we just need to hold on. You know what I'm saying? Just a little while longer. God is doing something. Silence does not mean that there's no activity. You know what I'm saying? Anonymity does not mean that God is not creating a platform for you.
Man, that's real. For somebody who's like watching this, who came thinking, man, I'm going to learn some major business acumen or something. Like, listen, you may be just kind of frustrated because where you are in your season. And what you heard from Dr. Myron Edmonds just this second, I don't want to rush past that. That could very possibly that God could be placing you in a season for you to grow and develop in
In the
darkness,
dark.
man. Yeah, in the
That's
dark,
how
and
all
that
mostly there's a thing with like nocturnal plants, you know that, and they don't require sunlight, but they grow best in the dark. And yeah, man, that was critical. Yeah.
It's crazy, man. My wife has 2 plants downstairs right in front of the light, and it was dying, and it was saying
Mm.
she did the research, and she was saying that they found out that it couldn't grow in direct sunlight. You had to literally take it out and put it in the shade for it to grow, and I was just like, I was just like, it's usually said, we've been talking about this for a while, but it was like, it was
Yeah.
literally wilting because it was in the
Mhm.
sun. But as
Mm.
soon as she put it in shade, it started growing and blossoming. And it's like, doesn't need a whole lot of light, doesn't need a whole lot of water. Just put me in the shade. And I think that's something for individuals maybe serving second. And you feel like, man, I'm out here, nobody sees me. And that
Yeah.
can be the very place that God needs you to be in this season. So sheesh, that's crazy. That is crazy.
It's funny. I've been, as you're talking about it, almost every major character in the Bible, none of these characters that became big luminaries did not have a season. None of them did. They all had, I should say, I won't use a double negative, but they all had a season of obscurity first. I mean, David was on the run. He was
Mm,
serving Saul, and then, man, that brother had to even be with his enemies. I mean, like, it looked like his life was never going to blow up. Joseph, man, the man was in prison, man. I mean, they forgot about him. The butler, the baker, which one of them forgot about him down there? Like Jesus, 30 years, this is a framework that God uses before he really does stuff in people's life. And so I haven't
in my
really processed that since I've been talking to you.
And listen, I'm gonna take it a step further, and this is one thing that God gave me. When we hear the story that man looks on the outward appearance, God looks at the heart. When
Mhm.
Saul, when Samuel chose David, he rejected all of his brothers, but he also rejected Jonathan, who should have been king.
Well, he sure did. Yes.
And his entire life was spent planning to be king, planning to be the lead. And when
Mhm.
God selected, not for his own fault, and he lived his life in obscurity, but he chose to serve. He chose to say,
Yes.
listen, every win for David is a win for the
Yes.
kingdom, is
Is
a
it
win for
right,
Israel,
and
is a
I'm
win for
good.
God. That means it's a win for me. And I
Mhm.
saw that and I was like, oh my, like his entire life was destined to be king, but God
Yes.
said, no, you're going to serve second. And
Mm.
so in that concept it's very possible that you can live there and thrive there. But what I love what you're saying is being at peace with where God wants you to be. And I think we can fight for being in the spotlight and literally be in a place of death, like that plant. You know, or we could literally just kind of be in a place where it's like, okay, God, wherever you need me to be, wherever I can grow, because there are people that can grow in the background, and that's just kind of one of the things as we're learning and talking about this. Like every time I talk to have a podcast conversation, it's like something else just kind of pops out, and it's like God has designed this thing
Mm.
for us to be at peace wherever He wants us to be and wherever He's created us to be. And I think when we stop fighting that, and we finally get to a place like, okay, Lord, not my will, Your will be done.
Mhm.
We get in a place of alignment, and we can see that.
That's so good. Yo, that's so good. So encouraging.
Yeah, yeah. So one of your mantras when it comes to working with men is winning in what matters.
Mhm.
And that is something that, I have two boys, Eleazar and Uriah, you know them.
Oh.
And that's one of the things we kind of focus on. Like, listen, you got to make sure you win in what matters. Break that down. And why is that like the tagline for the winning circle?
It's funny, I don't even know where it came from, but it feels like it's just always been there. I will say this, though, I know that so much of it has to do with my own experience. It's just being a pastor and not really knowing how to balance,
Mm,
the work life, the family life, and the personal life. And had a lot of failure there. Um, Oftentimes, cheating my family. In preface to the church, I remember one author said, "Cheat the church, not your family." Obviously, we don't want to cheat the church in that sense, but I get his point. His point is if there's anybody who should get the remainder of you, it should be everybody else, but your family should get the best of you. And I didn't do very well at that. And I was so therefore, even though I was a good pastor and I was, baptizing and we're doing evangelism and we're building churches and all those things, but I was, struggling in my marriage, struggling, with my own kids, struggling with my own health, mental health, battling some private struggles. And so all of that showed me, bro, you're winning, but you're not winning what matters. And I find that
mm,
there's a lot of men that relate to that. A lot of men struggle because so many of us are driven by a need for significance and value based upon what we do. So we oftentimes make idols out of our career, out of our position, and we leave the most important people behind. And, as a pastor, I've done so many funerals, many times of people who are not super popular and some people who are, giants in the community. But one thing I hardly ever saw when I was doing these funerals is people talking about all the stuff that they accomplished. Before they die, they always were talking about they wish they had more time to spend with their families. They wish, as they're sick laying in the bed, they're wishing that they would have, spent more time with their son, their wife. And so, those end of life experiences and just, my wife checking me sometimes, trying to get my attention, the Holy Spirit doing stuff, just saying, "Hey, man, you done lost focus, bro. You're winning, but you're one dimensional winner. Like you're not winning in what matters." And so, yeah, I think that's what it is. And I think men, because we love tasks and we love doing, our handicap a lot of times is the relationships. And so we leave the most important people, which I would say is God. I would say is then ourselves, really, taking care of our health, our temple, caring for ourselves, and then showing up for our families. Many of us struggle in those areas, our marriages, our children, our parents. I heard one guy say one time, he was just like, forgot his name, but I is it Eisner? I can't remember, but he's former, part owner of the Atlanta Hawks, and he's a motivational speaker and coach, and he was saying to this one guy, he said, "How many more years do you think you have left with your parents?" And he said,
Mm,
"I probably got
mhm.
about 10 more years." And he's like, "Well, how often do you see them?" You've heard this. And he said, "Well, I see them about twice a year." He said, "Well, you don't have 10 more years, you have 20 more opportunities." And I thought about, so I mean, those relationships, and then last but not least, community. So a lot of us are spending our whole lives trying to be good at our jobs. And then one day when our bodies are broken down and we retire, we look around and we realize we missed a lot of moments with family, with friends, with ourselves, and people end up, leaving a lot of regret. So we winning in what matters is relationships. Relationships over everything. Not over relationships over career, relationships over status, relationships, the most important relationships, God, myself, family, community, bro, that's first.
Man, that's special. And that kind of leads me into the question I want to ask. You started with men, but this weekend you're having this thing for couples. Why? Well, let me just say this. With your wife, she's a doctor, she's a dentist. In this journey, how have you changed as a husband? And then what have you learned to pour into the next, the other husbands and also couples
Mm.
like you're doing this weekend?
Mm, I've learned as a husband, and this is the only reason why we're doing it. So basically,
Hmm.
I lead a small group of men called the Inner Circle, and we meet quarterly, and so we have these in person events. But we always do one event that includes the spouses, and of course, we invite other couples that want to come to embrace this message that the Winning Circle's been teaching. I believe it's for both men and women to win in what matters. And so we help these couples and these because a lot of men were saying, they were like, "You're teaching us all this stuff, and we're learning these new systems, but we want to bring our families along with it. We want to bring our spouses along." So it kind of came from feedback from them. So we're bringing these couples together. And honestly, I wish I had this, kind of stumbled on this because of my own failures. We're essentially teaching. The main thing is we want couples to come and leave with a winning strategy for what their best life looks like as a couple winning in what matters. A lot of us are so stretched because of the demands of capitalism, because of the demands of raising children, because of the demands of whatever it is that we got going on. And we drift away from what matters the most. And we need a reset to say, okay, what is our vision for our life? And what are the behaviors that we are going to implement right now that are going to help us to get there? Goals mean nothing if there's no systems. And so we teach couples systems. This is more than just, coming to talk about how we can communicate better. It's you're gonna come and build a plan that you will execute as a couple that's gonna help you to reach the goals that you want to reach as a couple. And so I did not do that. I didn't have strategy. I had talk. I
Mm.
had intentions. And one author said, intentions without direction will never lead to your destination. Good intentions are not enough. You got to have direction, systems, strategy. And so, even with my wife and I, sometimes we were in trouble with our finances. And we saw some research that said when couples talk about their money every day, their net worth goes up tremendously. I can't remember what the number is, but it was such an attention getting number that my wife and I finally said, you know what, we need to come together. A lot of couples, they just exist.
Mm.
They're just paying the bills and taking care of the kids and going to work, and they kiss each other and they just keep on going. And there is no lock in step vision. We're moving together and we're checking in and we're keeping the fires burning with a plan and a strategy. And that came out of my own experience. And so now Kimona's kind of the guy who's like, "Yo, have you noticed that you guys are really systematic at your house?" I was like, "Ah." He was like, "Man, you need to start teaching this." And that's kind of how the shift framework came out: spiritual life, health, integrity, family, tribe. So yeah.
Man, this is rich, man. What for an individual that just going back to you mentioned chemo several times. What has been, and I guess one of the things, and we talked about this earlier when it comes to Michael Jordan and Scotty. Like now you have a championship system that you and Kimon have really been able to develop. And for those individuals who have, you have always been, I guess, in my eyes and many others, an individual that lives in the spotlight. But there are also people that like Kimon that have come around and made a difference. And I just
Mhm.
want you to speak to those other, leaders who are, I hate to say they use the term, but alpha males or MJs, Scotty's, individuals. Hey, listen, I'm going to lead, and I think that's great. But you're leading with a team and with individuals that can also operate at a high level. What do you think you've done to attract people like that, like Kimon, to your team? Well, just use him. What did you do to attract him to help you really? Because you've always had a gift, but he's helped you systemize it and then explode. What would you say to those individuals to help them make that same decision?
Yeah, so, Kimon, I don't even know if I attracted Kimon. Maybe I did. But when you have the heart of a serving second kind of person, your natural disposition is to serve others. And
Hmm.
Kimon saw some stuff in me and he poured into me. He believed in me. And whatever has been accomplished has been a we thing. I may be the face of it. Just like, MJ, Jordan, they wasn't winning no championships for 7 years. And then when Bill Jackson and Tex Winters and Clemens and all them boys came in and put the people around him that he needed, then he started winning. Which honestly, let's be real. I love LeBron James. I love Michael Jordan. I love all these guys. But because our culture is so obsessed with celebrity and with propping up a superstar, we are always overlooking the people that provided the foundation and the support necessary for them to get there. Ain't no way Michael winning without Scotty. There's no way he's winning without Rodman. There's no way he's winning without, you know, and the same thing here. Like, I'm not even doing this if Kimon doesn't come to me and say, bro, you got something here and I think you should look at it. I disagreed with him. I was like, nah, I'm a pastor. I'm interested in a lot of things. No, I think I was like, all right. And then I eventually start paying this guy with money I didn't have. And it was the best investment I ever made in my life because he helped me to get on the right track. And so, yes, for all the, oh, he's doing it, blah, 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 blah. There's always somebody behind the scenes. You pick somebody. Pick a person who gets a lot of attention, and I promise you, there's some engines behind the scenes that are keeping them from getting in trouble, keeping them focused. Man, Kimon has saved me from so. Listen, honestly, if it wasn't for Kimon, I would seriously, I would have gotten so much trouble because I have a tendency to, get distracted and lose focus. But his thing has always been stay right here. And so, not just Kimon, but even all the people
Mm,
behind the scenes, our families and so forth, and they don't get enough credit. But honestly, I think to answer your question, here's the answer for all of you folks out there who can relate to serving second. Ask yourself this question. Am I here for image or am I here for impact? Everybody's going to have an expiration date.
mm,
Everybody. And I think sometimes ego and pride for whoever it is, behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, if your real heart's desire is for impact and not for image, you always be fulfilled because that's you're in it for the impact and not for the image. And so I just think I thank God for people like the Kimons who oftentimes, this, they feel maybe like, man, I'm helping everybody else.
mm,
When is it my turn? And I just believe, man, God is not a man that he should lie, man. Listen, if you sow in tears, you're going to reap in joy.
mm.
Like he is going to bless. And we see that all throughout scripture. And we see that all throughout people's lives that, for every quote unquote person in the limelight, there was somebody behind them and God will take care of people who take care of people.
I was going to ask you another question, but we're going to end right there. Listen, God will take care of people that take care of people. And, listen, Myron, I am, we've been friends over 20 years, and just even every time we connect, it's always been a blessing. And for you to come on and take time out of your day after catching a flight and got all these different things going on, just want to say thank you for being with us. Thank you for pouring into men. Thank you for pouring into families. I can't wait. I'm coming to Atlanta this
Yeah,
weekend.
I know.
Uh,
Yeah.
about
But
to
bro, I
get
have to
get.
say to you, and I want to say this on your platform. Those of you
Mm,
guys that don't know this, Toussaint has a heart for service, and it's not just in his career. Um, our son, who's going through a very difficult time, he was attending a boarding school in Pennsylvania. Some of you may know this at Pine Forge Academy. He was smack dab. He's one of those kids that
Five horse.
got caught up in COVID and wanted
Mm,
to play basketball, but that COVID season took a lot away from a lot of kids. And this brother right here offered, he and his wife offered for my son to come and live with them. And for 2 years, my son lived with them. And so, Tusa, I want to say to you publicly, I said privately, but I want to say on your platform, he doesn't
Mhm.
just talk about this; he lives it. He and his wife are behind the scenes, taking care and helping really to raise my son, so that he can fulfill his dreams and play basketball. And it was a tremendous experience in his growth and development. And so he's not just talking about this thing. Service and serving is not something we do because the resume calls for the job description. This is how you've lived your life, Toussaint. And I know that God is going to continue to elevate and bless you because of how you have taken care of so many people, but specifically how you've taken care of ours. Thank you so much, bro.
Man, thank you, fam. It's something you do it, and it just kind of becomes who you are. And I think you've done it. Your mom and dad have done it. And I think so many people have experienced by serving others. They're blessed as well. So, thank you, family. This is the Serving Second podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Toussaint Williams. This is where second chair leaders learn to create first place outcomes, and we do it in community. We do it together, and ultimately, we learn to win in what matters. Thank you, Dr. Myron Edmonds, for joining us this weekend. Look forward to seeing you, and God bless.